Mama came to visit her son, Mason. As a devoted Christian woman, she came with one mission to convince him that it was time to settle down. She told him she had already found the perfect wife, the pastor's daughter, a beautiful young woman with a sweet voice and a God-fearing heart. But Mason wasn't interested. Before Mama could continue, loud noise erupted from the compound. Their neighbors, Kumba and James, staggered in drunk, laughing, and making a scene. Mama was shocked. "So these are the kinds of neighbors you're living with?" she asked, horrified. On their way inside, Mason explained that Kumba and James were always partying, always drunk. Mama warned him to be careful so they wouldn't influence him. Inside James' apartment, a different world was happening. He and Kumba had just finished being intimate. As she entered the bathroom to shower, James received a phone call. He barged into the bathroom, ordering her to get ready because a senator wanted to see her. Kumba begged she was tired, she needed rest. But James, acting like the pimp he truly was, forced her to go immediately. One night, as Mason prayed in his living room, he heard a woman's voice outside. It was Kumba, secretly calling her brother. She promised to send money for their father's treatment, even though she didn't want to see the man who had hurt her so deeply. Mason stepped out to greet her, but she ignored him and walked away. The next morning, chaos broke out. James was chasing Kumba around the compound, accusing her of stealing his money. Mason stepped in to separate them, but James warned him to mind his business. In the struggle, Mason's hand got cut. Surprisingly, it was Kumba who cleaned his wound. But she warned him coldly, "Next time James and I are fighting, don't interfere. Today it's your hand, tomorrow it might be your life." On Sunday morning, Mason visited their apartment again and invited Kumba to church. She laughed and asked him if he could follow her to a club instead. When he hesitated, she told him sharply that she wasn't a church person, and she didn't need saving. Later that evening, Kumba prepared for another job. She begged James not to send her to a man named G. She explained how abusive he was, how she always returned bruised, how she nearly died the last time. But James didn't care. The money was too good. So she went, and she returned broken and battered, to the point James had to call a doctor. That night, as Mason prayed again, Kumba tiptoed through her apartment, trying to steal money to help her father. But James caught her and beat her viciously. Her screams echoed through the compound. Mason couldn't ignore it. He rushed over and begged James to stop, reminding him that what he was doing was not just illegal, it was ungodly. James warned him again, "Stay out of my business, or you'll find out who I really am." The next morning, Mason waited for James to leave before checking on Kumba. He gently asked if she was okay and reminded her that no matter her past, Jesus could save her. Kumba rolled her eyes and called him a clown before walking away. But Mason didn't stop caring. He went inside and prayed for her. Days later, James handed her a bag to deliver at a club. When Kumba peeked inside, it was filled with drugs. As she headed out, Mason again invited her to church, but she ignored him. That night, James threw a loud celebration over the money the drug delivery brought in. Mason couldn't sleep. When he went to ask them to lower the music, James punched him in the stomach for daring to approach his door again. The next morning, a worried Kumba came to check on Mason. She mocked him for not fighting back, joking that he expected Jesus to fight for him. Mason gently asked if she still believed in God. She replied softly, "I used to, not anymore." Later that day, her brother called again begging her to visit their father. But Kumba refused. She would send money, but she swore never to see the man who destroyed her family. Desperate, she approached James and asked for a loan of 500,000 to help her dying father. Coldly, he refused, reminding her that he clothed her, fed her, and expected her to earn for him, not the other way around. That afternoon, overwhelmed, Kumba sat outside smoking. Mama arrived to visit Mason and caught her. Without hesitation, Mama began mocking her, telling her she was practicing how she would burn in hell. But when she mentioned Kumba's mother, Kumba snapped and warned her to stop. Mama started shouting dramatically, claiming Kumba beat her. Mason rushed out and dragged his mother away. A few days later, with James gone, Kumba swallowed her pride and knocked on Mason's door. She asked for a loan even though she had always been rude to him. Mason didn't hesitate, he agreed to give her the money. Grateful, she cooked for him as a way to say thanks. As they ate, Mason gently asked why she no longer believed in God. Kumba opened her heart. Her mother was a sickle cell patient. Doctors had warned her never to get pregnant again, but Kumba's father wanted a second child. When her mother resisted, he threatened to take another wife. Terrified, her mother gave in. Throughout the pregnancy, her mother lived in the hospital. Doctors begged her father to allow an abortion but he refused because the baby was a boy. Kumba was only 10 years old. She fasted and prayed every single day that her mother would survive. But after giving birth to the baby boy, her mother died. Kumba said, with tears in her eyes. After everything, how could God allow that? Why didn't he hear me? Mason was deeply moved. He wrote her the check for her father's treatment. Kumba thanked him, promising to pay him back. The next day, she came by again. They watched a pastor preaching, and for the first time in many years, Kumba broke down crying. Mason held her hands, prayed with her, and she cried freely. James returned after days away. That night, Kumba left their bed and slept on the couch. In the morning, he demanded she go meet another client, Ray. Kumba refused, saying she wanted to go to church. James flared up, and she quickly said she was joking. Minutes later, she ran straight into Mason's house, trembling. She told him James wanted to force her to sleep with an old man. Mason hid her inside. When James came knocking, Mason calmly told him he hadn't seen her. From that day, Mason and Kumba bonded. They cooked together, laughed together, watched movies, prayed, and played like friends who had known each other forever. But James continued searching. One day he made a call, loudly saying if he found Kumba, he would kill her. Terrified, she confessed to Mason that James had already killed another girl who tried to escape. One afternoon, Mason walked into the kitchen and found Kumba cooking. He teased her, saying his mother wanted him to marry and he wanted her to be that woman. Kumba froze. She said she wasn't worthy, that her past was too dirty. But Mason told her gently, "Your past doesn't define you." One night while praying together, Kumba said she couldn't run forever. Mason immediately got an idea they would report James to the police. She told him there was a voice note where James threatened to kill her if she didn't sleep with a dying old man. Plus, she knew where he kept his drugs. She said she wasn't afraid to testify and other girls would join her. Mason called the police. James was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Mason and Kumba officially started dating, and their love grew stronger every single day. But Mama became the new obstacle. When she saw her son with Kumba, she protested loudly, calling Kumba dirty, sinful, unfit. Kumba ran into her room crying. Mason sat Mama down and told her Kumba's entire story. Mama felt sympathy, but still refused to bless the relationship. The next morning, as she prepared to leave, Mama peeked out the window and saw Mason and Kumba laughing together in the compound, truly happy. For the first time, Mama saw her son's joy. As she walked out, she turned to Kumba and said softly, "I'm leaving now. Take good care of my son." Kumba froze in shock. Mama smiled, and left. And from that day, Mason and Kumba were happy with God, with each other, and with Mama's blessing finally resting over them.